Okay. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Tafra Meetup 50, number 50. For whom of you who didn't attend any Tafra meetups before, let me tell you more about who we are and what we do and why this meetup is going to be beneficial for you. And for whom of you who's really like a Tafra supporter, like attended Tafra meetups before, welcome again. Continue our meetups like we stopped a while because of Corona, because of what's happening to us, but we came back with a big start. So okay, Hans, can you move to the next slide? So simply, who are we? We are Tafra.io. It's a platform to empower techies through different means and content, like master classes, meetups, online content, and even trainings and certificates to empower them to disrupt tech industries worldwide. We have been doing that since 2018, and we have many products or many like initiatives to support our techies. Can you move to the next slide, Hans? One of them is Tafra Meetup. You think, okay, here is about me. Let me tell you more. Let me tell you about me. My name is Mohammed Abdelghait. I'm the founder of Tafra and Techie Matter. I'll tell you more about Techie Matter later. My background is engineering, and I have more than 7 years of experience in building businesses. Okay, so can you move to the next slide? So as I mentioned, one of our products, one of our initiatives is Tafra Meetup, and we conducted more than 55 meetups actually. However, this meetup's name is 50, but actually there were a lot of master classes and a lot of online and offline meetups that was not recorded with numbers. We conducted meetups in almost 7 tech domains: product management, product design, data science, IoT, web development, mobile development, and many more. And I'm happy to say, like I'm proud to say, we were the pioneers in conducting these meetups in Egypt, tackling new topics for people like DevOps back then, around 2008, and product management and other topics. And that's not only, but also, next slide, please, Hans. That's not only, but also we have online content that you can check it with our YouTube channel. We produced a few of them, and we're going to continue. As you can see, we had what we call Tafra Versus series, where we explain different terminologies and different topics that you may feel they are the same, like product management and business analysis and systems analysis and project management, and maybe like agile and lean and scrum and waterfall and other topics. And as I mentioned, we'll be conducting courses and master classes. And actually, one of the things that I'm going to tell you at the end of this meetup, our next step. So if you are going to stay with us till the end of the meetup, you are going to learn more about our next steps. Next slide, please, Hans. So what's next? This is about me. This is about Tafra and what we did. We are partnering up with 2 reputable entities, NetOVM and ISPMA. ISPMA stands for Software Product Management Institute of Software Product Management Association. Next slide, please. And we will conduct a series of meetups. We are going to start with the first one, Career Perspective for Software People. Actually, the other meetups topics will be defined by your inputs in the registration form and what you asked for, and also with Hans' schedule. He will tell us more about the next topics, and we'll consider your input in the registration form. I talked to you about Tafra, and I would love to take the chance. I would love to benefit from this beautiful audience to tell you more about Techie Matter. Next slide, please, Hans. Techie Matter, for whom of you who heard about it before, or like maybe knows it, it's a tech hiring arm for hundreds of companies in 10 countries worldwide. It's a platform where you can hire techies in different domains easily and quickly. And we're doing this in a very unique approach with a vetting system that will allow us to serve different companies in, as I mentioned, 10 countries. And actually, for the time being, we're hiring associate product manager, mid-level product manager. And I would love to tell you more about this role and what you're going to do and what are your responsibilities and everything. So please, if you are interested, just send me an email or send your resumes to this email. I'll write it down in the chat for whom of you who's interested to send the email. And I'll be happy to talk to you. I will leave the floor to Hans from here to tell you more about himself and to start the meetup. So Hans, the floor is yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mohammed. Hello again. Welcome to Egypt. I think most of you are based in Egypt. Today we are going to talk about career perspective for software product managers. I'm very happy about the cooperation with Tafra, with Mohammed and Amra. What are we going to look into? So first of all, I will say a little bit about myself so that you know my background. Then I'll go into software product management and what we understand by software product management. I will talk about requirements for people who want to go into that role. Then I'll give you some information on ISPMA, the International Software Product Management Association. We'll say a little bit about this cooperation between Tafra and my company, Innotivum. And there will be an opportunity for you to ask questions. So let me start with a few words about myself. My name is Hans Bernd. I have been in the software business for a very long time. I started out with studying computer science, and then I worked for IBM for a number of years, first as a software developer, and then I got into project management and line management positions in development. I worked in the IBM lab in the south of Germany, close to Stuttgart. Today I'm still based in Germany, and when you look at the background photo that I have here on Zoom, that's actually the area where I live. And today it looked pretty much like on this photo. This is south of Cologne and Bonn and the west of Germany. When I had worked in development positions with IBM for a number of years, I got my first opportunity to go into product management. And actually, I became responsible for the product management of one of IBM's operating systems. And I can tell you at that time, that was a jump into very cold water. At that time, there were no books, no trainings, so it was very much learning by doing. And when I asked other people who already had this job what they were doing, I got very different answers. So everybody had her or his own definition of what software product management was about. Later on, I became responsible for IBM's software products in the areas of database and application development. And I spent 3 years mostly on planes, jetting between Germany and other European countries. My boss, who was an Englishman in Paris, software headquarters of IBM in New York, and my team, which was in Stuttgart, Germany, in Silicon Valley and in Toronto in Canada. So after 3 years, my wife said to me, enough. And so I decided to stop. And I actually left IBM and joined the German Savings Banks organization, which is the largest retail banking organization in Germany. If you have ever traveled through Germany, you may remember this red S, which is their logo. So huge organization, and I became the director of their computer science center. And in that organization, we also established software product management. After a number of years, I then started my own company, Innotivum. And since then, I have done lots of training courses and consulting engagements with companies all over the world, primarily on the subject of software product management. So, for example, I've worked with some really big companies like Samsung in Korea and Infosys in India, mid-sized companies all over Europe, and also some very small companies and startups. A couple of years ago, we founded ISPMA, the International Software Product Management Association. And the group of people who founded ISPMA were experts from the industry side and also from the academic side. And I will tell you a bit more about that organization in a couple of minutes. Over time, I've published a number of books and lots of articles on software product management. These are the book publications. The one on the left side is the latest one, and it will be released by Springer this month. At least that's what they promised me. That is compliant with ISPMA's body of knowledge and can also be used as a study guide and handbook that accompanies any training that is based on ISPMA. With that, I would like to go into the subject of software product management. And let me start with a definition. We define software product management as both the management of software products and also the management of embedded software, of software parts, of software-intensive products, which can often be hardware products. This discipline really governs the software product or the software part over its whole life cycle, from the initial development through growth and maturity phases to end of life. So we look at the whole life cycle with the objective to generate as much value to the business as possible. So these are really the two important terms here. We want to generate business value. So we see the role of software product manager really as a business role, as an entrepreneurial role, where we want to generate business value, which then hopefully can be translated into revenue. And we look at a long time frame. In the end, the whole life cycle of the product. Of course, in the beginning, we do not really know how long that life cycle will be. But when you think of really successful products, that can be very long. Think of the Oracle database. The first version of the Oracle database came out about 45 years ago, and it's still a very successful product. Same with Microsoft Windows. Came out in its previous incarnation as DOS. It came out in the early 1980s, so 40 years old. So we are really talking about long life cycles with really successful products. We have created this so-called SBM framework. And the idea behind this framework is that we want to show all relevant tasks in a software product organization from a product manager's perspective. So what you see here are all the individual tasks, and they are sorted in columns. So on the right side, you see the functional areas of a software organization, that is development, marketing, sales and fulfillment, and delivery services and support. The activities, the tasks in these functional areas are not the direct responsibility of a product manager, but as a product manager, we need to orchestrate all the other units. We want them to contribute to the success of our product in the best possible way. So that's what we mean by orchestration. Then you see the columns product strategy and product planning. That is the core of product managers' responsibilities. And when we say product strategy and product planning, product strategy are all those tasks and decisions that have a long-term effect on the product. So really strategic, important decisions that we need to make as product managers. Product planning really is more oriented towards the implementation. So here we plan in great detail what we want to implement when. So that is documented in a release plan for the individual release and in a roadmap for a strategic time frame of the product up to 5 years. And we show over that time frame which strategic elements of our product strategy we want to implement at which point in time. So that's the idea under product planning. When you look at the elements under product strategy, that starts with positioning and product definition. By positioning, we mean how our product generates customer value. So when a customer is using our product, what is the value that the customer gets from using it? And this is related to the market segments that we target with our product. So we have to define a target market for our product. Who is going to use our product? For whom will it create value? And in a lot of cases, that target market needs to be broken down into multiple market segments because customers in different segments may perceive different value. And that's what is meant by segmentation of the target market. So these activities need to be done as part of positioning, and that's here in the product strategy column, so under the responsibility of the product manager. But of course, the product manager needs to work together, for example, with marketing people when it comes to positioning. Related to that is the subject of product definition. So under product definition, we define the scope of the product. What is the functional scope? What functionality do we want to cover? Do we want to offer with our product? So that's a pretty rough definition, but still important, because it defines what is inside and what is outside of our product. And so later on, when we get some new requirement, we can check it against our product definition and decide, is this requirement in scope or is it out of scope? And we do not even need to consider it because we will definitely not implement it in our product. The next element under product strategy is delivery model and service strategy. With delivery model, we mean how is the product delivered to our customers? And there are basically two options. One is the licensed product, which is run on-premise in the customer's environment. And the other alternative is a software as a service offering that we run as the vendor in our environment and give access to the customer. That is a very fundamental decision that you better make early on, because that has a significant impact, for example, on the technical architecture of the product. When we talk about service strategy, we really mean professional services, human services. So that can be something like maintenance, that can be training, that can be professional services that help the customer to become productive with the software as quickly as possible, like help with the installation, help with the integration of the software into the customer's environment, those kind of services. We suggest that these services need to be managed by the product manager as part of the product offering. So this is not separate, even though the services may be provided by a different organizational unit of the software company. But these services are an important part of the total offering, and because they help the customer to become productive and to stay productive over time. The third element under product strategy is called ecosystem management. In software, there is no company, not even the really big players, that can provide all elements of the IT stack, all elements that the customer needs as a solution by itself. So all companies need partners who provide some elements of the total solution that the customer needs. So when we talk about ecosystem management, it's really about all these players, all these other companies around us that provide components like other software products, like services, so that the combination of their offerings and our own product provides the solution that the customer needs. And that is something that we better manage. So that is what is meant by ecosystem management. Make sure when your product is the platform of such an ecosystem that you actively manage your relationship with the other players in that ecosystem. You are probably aware that a lot of software companies create so-called partner programs. Microsoft has a huge partner program. And partner programs are a way how to formalize relationships within an ecosystem. So partner programs are part of ecosystem management. The next element that you see in the product strategy column is the subject of sourcing. So here there are basically two questions. First question is, where do I get the people from who I want to work on the product? That will be internal people, people who are employed by your company, but that can also be external people. You may decide to work with external developers and integrate them into your development team in order to have more capacity or to get specific skills that you do not have internally. So that's one flavor of the subject of sourcing. The other flavor is the software itself. So you can decide that you do not want to develop all required software in your product by yourself, but you can integrate software from other partners. And that is also known as the make or buy decision. The next items in this product strategy column are the topics of pricing and financial management. So these are the financial aspects. When we talk about pricing for software products, the way to go is called value-based pricing. And that goes back to our positioning. Under positioning, we talked about customer value, and that's exactly what we need as the basis for a value-based pricing approach. So the better we understand how value is created for our customers, the better we can mirror that value creation in our pricing approach. And that helps us to communicate our prices. We can tell customers, look, our price is only a fraction of the value that you will get from using our product. So that's basically the way you can communicate value-based pricing. Under financial management, that's about all the financial aspects, both on the cost side and on the revenue side. Typically, we need to make forecasts for revenue over the strategic time frame. What is the revenue that we expect to generate? And these numbers then go to corporate or the management of the company for the financial plan of the company. The next topic is legal aspects. that is something that software product managers are usually not very familiar with, but they are important. So this is, for example, the question, how do you create a contract between your company and the customer? What needs to be in that contract? What needs to be in the contract for a licensed product versus a software as a service offering? With a software as a service offering, typically you have what is called a service level agreement that specifies what you commit to in terms of quality parameters of the service that you provide, like technical performance or availability and similar quality parameters. Another legal aspect is the protection of intellectual property. So you want to make sure when you have some innovative content in your product that you protect that so that other companies cannot simply copy that. This also applies to names. So you also want to protect the name of your product so that some other company cannot launch a product under the same name. So that's what is meant by protection of intellectual property. There are lots of additional legal aspects that are relevant for software, and that's what product managers need to understand. Of course, then you need to work with a legal expert who can help you with that, but at least you need to know enough so that you can ask the right questions when you work with a legal expert. And the last item in this column here is performance and risk management. So performance here means business performance. How can you track and manage the business performance of your product in terms of revenue, in terms of market share, or whatever else you select as relevant measures? So that's what we have here in the column product strategy.
And
yes,
I'm sorry for interruption, but I strongly recommend to have some sort of a checkpoint after each column to ask the audience if they have questions, if they understand.
Yes, of course. Please feel free to interrupt if there are any questions.
Because the content is rich, and maybe for the people who see this for the first time, they are not familiar with the whole thing, like maybe or something. So please, guys, if you have any question about the two columns, product strategy and strategic management, feel free to ask, and definitely we can continue tackling the other columns. Okay, I think this means they have no questions. It's fine. Just checkpoint of column.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Well, a few words about the tasks in the product planning column, which are also part of the core product management responsibilities. That column starts with customer insight. So by customer insight, we mean all these activities that you can do in order to better understand your customers. In B2C, that is quite straightforward. So in B2C, we usually have the situation that customers and users are identical. In B2B, it's a bit more difficult. In B2B, the customer is usually a legal entity with some decision makers and maybe a procurement manager and these kind of roles that are important during the purchase of our product. But then the users are totally separate. And the users are the ones who then over time work with our product and become most important. So we need to understand all these roles on the customer side, in the customer's organization. And then we have the classic product planning activities. When we go from the bottom, that's product requirements engineering. So for each requirement that we get, we need to analyze that and prepare it for a decision making. We want to decide if we need and want to implement this requirement in the product. So that's the purpose of this preparation. The decision is made under release planning. So when we plan the next release of our product, we select the requirements that we want to implement in that release. Road mapping is on a more abstract level. So with the roadmap, we want to describe which elements of our product strategy we want to implement at which point in time over the strategic time frame. And when we talk about product lifecycle management, that really looks at the total life cycle of the product, where we need to understand where is the product in its life cycle. Are we still in the start phase? Are we in the growth phase? Are we in the maturity phase? Those kind of questions. And then we have to make decisions that fit the phase that the product is in. So typically in the start phase or in the growth phase, you will invest a lot in the product, whereas in the later phases of the life cycle, you will reduce your investment in order to generate more profit. So that's in a nutshell what we look at in the columns of product strategy and product planning.
We have a question by Omar El Sayed in the chat box.
Sure.
Can you access it? Or would you want me to?
Yes, I see it.
Oh.
Well, we understand customer insight as a term that stands for all the learnings that we can get when we are in direct or indirect contact with customer organizations. So whoever represents the customer in these different roles and has an interface to us as a company is important when we talk about customer insight. So that includes the users, but that also includes decision makers in the customer organization. All of them are relevant when we try to get customer insight. Does that answer the question?
Omar, are you following? Yeah, he said thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. On the left side of this framework, you see the column strategic management. So this column has all the elements that are done on a corporate or business unit level and that product managers may participate in. So here we find topics like portfolio management that looks at the total portfolio of products that the company has, and you want to make decisions how much you invest into which product in the next year, for example. The next one we have here is innovation management. So these are initiatives in high-tech organizations, how to generate innovations and bring them into product development. Resource management, that's primarily human resources in software organizations. So here the product manager needs to ensure that whatever is in the product strategy is reflected in the company's resource strategy. Then we have the subject of compliance management. So this means that the company has to decide to which external rules the company wants to follow, wants to comply with. In some areas that is quite clear when we talk about laws or regulatory requirements in some industries like banking or health. But there are other areas where the company really needs to make decisions, like in the area of sustainability, all these green items. In the area of ethics, there are no strict external law-like rules, but there is more freedom and companies have to make decisions what they want to comply with in these areas. So whatever is decided here under compliance management on a company level needs to be implemented on the product level. So the product manager needs to drive that implementation. And then we have the topics of market analysis and product analysis here. In larger companies, there are often specialists on a company level who provide information on the market and who provide numbers on products like revenue, like cost numbers, those kind of things. If in your organization there are no specialists like that in a central unit, then this is part of the product manager's responsibility. And you as a product manager need to make sure that you get these numbers in a reliable and frequent way. So that pretty much describes all the relevant tasks and activities of a product manager on a rather abstract level. This framework is at the core of ISBMA's body of knowledge. We call all the knowledge that we have collected and documented our body of knowledge. You find that documentation in syllabi, which are available for free on the ISBMA website. And these syllabi are then the basis for training and also for certification for product managers. So the structure of ISBMA's body of knowledge and ISBMA's curriculum follows the structure of this framework. And I will explain that in a minute.
I have actually regarding this recently, like in a time span of 3 years, in the last 3 years here in Egypt, I noticed different titles and different roles regarding product management. I noticed product operation manager, product development manager, product marketing manager, and definitely product manager. Maybe it's a new thing here in Egypt, but given different titles, different roles, can you allocate these roles on the framework? Okay, if we have product marketing manager, what this,
You see, the problem in reality is that companies have different definitions of these role titles. I can say something about let's say what is statistically valid, what happens very frequently. So we define the role of a product manager as responsible for all these blue boxes here. So everything that is in product strategy and product planning, maybe market and product analysis, and certainly the subject of orchestration for the other units of the organization. That is the responsibility of product management. The responsibilities in these other columns on the right side, that can be different from company to company. And also the organizational structure can be different. So do not think that each of these columns must stand for an organizational unit of the company. Some companies map the tasks in these columns to different organizational units. So for example, some companies separate UX design organizationally from software development. It's a separate organizational unit, and sometimes quality management is also a separate organizational unit. But functionally, we consider all these activities as part of what we have called development. So this is a functional view, not an organizational structure necessarily. Can be, but it doesn't have to be. Now, when you talk about the role of a product marketing manager, that role will typically be here in the marketing column. When you talk about the role of a software development manager, that will be here in the development column. When you talk about the role of product owner, which came with agile methodologies, that role is typically also in the development column. You see here an element that says detailed requirements engineering. So that is part of the product owner's responsibilities when you have that role. So that's why we differentiate between product requirements engineering and detailed requirements engineering. And the role of the product owner is really the breakdown of product requirements into these detailed requirements. Or you could also say with product requirements, you are on an epic level, and with the detailed requirements, you are on a user story level. If you are familiar with these terms. So it's more about different levels of abstraction. Within the product manager's responsibilities, we assume that one person has the full responsibility and is responsible for all these activities. But in some companies, this is split up. They may have the role of a technical product manager, and the technical product manager is primarily responsible for the activities here in the product planning column. And they may have the role of a strategic product manager who is responsible for the activities in the product strategy column. So you find different splits in companies, and you also find different names for the role. We think that the software product manager is the term that is most often used for this role, but in some companies they are called program manager or solution manager, or IBM introduced a term, they call them offering manager. People in IBM who have that job hate that title because it sounds like a sales role, but IBM decided to call them offering manager. So there is quite a lot of variety in the industry. But fortunately, over the last 10 years, software product manager is most often used as the name of this role. Does this answer your question, Mohammed?
Yeah, I think regarding your last sentence, we have two questions with Omar. He asked about the difference between software product management and product management, I think, in the chat box.
Well, the term product management is fairly old. Actually, the first time it is documented was about 90 years ago, actually for soap products from Procter & Gamble in the US. So the term product management is fairly generic and applies to any kind of product. We talk about software product management. Some aspects of software product management are similar to product management for other products, but quite a number of aspects are specific to software product management. The most important one is probably the fact that with software products, we keep changing the product all the time. And so a software product manager spends quite a bit of his time on analyzing and deciding which changes should be made at which point in time. That is different with most other products. When you think of hardware products, think of soap. You don't change the product every 3 months. Companies develop a soap product and then it goes into production and it is produced in pretty much the same way over long periods of time, years, before somebody decides that they may want to change the packaging, or maybe after 10 years, you want to change the perfume formula of that soap product. So a product manager for these kind of products is usually much more focused on marketing aspects and less focused on the product itself, like we are as software product managers. So we see a significant difference between software product management and product management for other products. And this difference comes from the special characteristics of software versus physical products. To question number 2, yes, there are product managers who have an MBA, but that is not a must requirement. The MBA ensures that the person has some business acumen, that the person has better understanding of the business aspects. I will come to that in a minute when we talk about the requirements for software product managers. You can have business acumen without having an MBA, so that is not necessarily a must requirement. Does that answer the questions? Okay. So that leads me to the next point. What is required? Well, there's a problem here with the fonts. Sorry for that. The product manager role is a central leadership role in a company that is important for all aspects that concern the product. Sometimes in the literature, you also find the term mini CEO. That means that the product manager is expected to manage the product like the CEO is managing the whole company from a business perspective. The product manager is supposed to be responsible for the business results of the product. Of course, there is a difference. And the difference is that the CEO is in a hierarchical leadership position for the whole organization, whereas product managers are typically not in a hierarchical line management position. So as a product manager, you have to manage without hierarchical rights. So you better are convincing moderator, but sometimes you need to persuade people in order to achieve what you want to achieve. I already talked about the many different names for this role. As a product manager, you usually have the full responsibility for one or even more products. For very big products, there may be multiple product managers working on that product, and then you can split the work within that product management team in different ways. When you expect a product manager to be an expert in everything that you see in that SPM framework, you will not find anybody. That is too broad. But that is not really needed. So what is really important is the management capability so that you can influence other members of the product team without authority, without being in a hierarchical line management position. You need business acumen. You need an understanding for the business aspects of the software product. You better understand how software development works, because that's your most important interface within the organization between product management and development. And when we talk about application software, you better have some level of domain knowledge so that you better understand how customers use your software product.
I have an insight here, Hans. I dealt with many product managers, and when I noticed they have some sort of strong background, technically, not technically, they are not the best when it comes to management capabilities. So like maybe they are subject matter expert in certain application or like in certain software, and they have technical background, but when it comes to management capabilities and leadership and managing a big team of product managers, there are a lot of downsides here. I'm not sure if this is maybe my case only, but
I agree with you. I mean, understanding how software development works, and that includes also technical aspects, is only one element. It is important, but it's not the whole story. So the other three elements here are equally important. So that's the challenge for software product managers. You really need this mix of knowledge and abilities. And that's what we are trying to include in our training, so that participants get all these perspectives on the product and understand what needs to be done in all these areas.
Yeah, it's not easy to find a really good chief product officer where he or she can, have both two sides, technical background or product management background and management and leadership.
Absolutely, absolutely, yes.
Okay.
So the good side of this is, since it is not so easy, companies value people who have these abilities very much. Actually, over the last 10 to 15 years, the salaries of software product managers have gone up quite a bit. Actually, in Silicon Valley, these days, product managers get more money than developers. And also, there is increasing demand, not only in the software industry, but also in other industries. So when you think of the automotive industry, the CEO of Volkswagen said publicly, Volkswagen is turning into a software company. That is revolutionary for a car manufacturer, right? We also see that in the manufacturing industry, in banking. So this product management ability becomes more and more important, not only in the software industry itself. Any questions?
I have one, please.
Yes.
In the beginning, I just want to say I'm really impressed by that framework, because it actually taught a lot of questions and spread answers and so on. So I think you summarized all of that in a very organized framework, covering the most of all of the function areas that we need to know. Thank you. This is the beginning.
You're welcome.
Thank you. The second question is related to, I think this framework is, I'm not sure, just correct me, based on your experience in different enterprises, which are large enterprises like IBM, Samsung, and so on. So I wonder if this way of thinking applies for startups in such emerging countries we are working for, or this is somehow a way of.
Well, when we talk about smaller organizations, the tasks are basically still the same. You may decide to drop some of them and say, we just don't do it. Or you may say, we only have a few people and we need to assign these tasks to these few people. So one person has to do multiple things that in larger companies are split up between different people and different roles.
Mm-hmm.
When you talk about startups, in startups, the focus is a bit different from a more established, more mature organization. So in startups, you focus a lot on problem solution fit in the beginning and later on product market fit before the product gets more and more established. We have just launched a new module as part of ISBMA's curriculum that is called SBM for Startups. And this new module focuses on these startup specific activities and tasks. So that is intended for product managers and maybe also for founders in startup situations, very specialized. And a number of areas that we have here in the full framework may not yet be relevant in the early startup phases, right? So we have created an additional framework which we call SBM for Startup framework that is really focused on this startup situation. But
is
nevertheless,
a framework I attended, right? This is a framework I attended with like, right?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Product management or like ISBMA for startups. Is this a framework you showed us in the online workshop?
Not today, but you may have seen it when you participated in the PM Summit in Frankfurt, yes?
Yes, yes. Okay.
Yes. Nesma, does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you. But I have, I'm sorry to ask any more. I have a couple of questions. One is, we always find the product manager has no authority and is more influencer than someone who has authority. Do you think it's healthy?
what is healthy?
To work without authorities at all. So,
well, most people in companies are in that position, right? I mean, the number of people in hierarchical management positions is usually less than 10% of the employees of a company.
Yeah, they less than 10%. And I think our job is mostly to persuade the top management more than with the big idea, and then to work with or to bring the teams buy-in just to execute. So do you think the product managers should have some kind of authority or delegation of, let me say, budget control, or let me call it some sort of a project control, just to approve the idea, or something like that?
I've seen companies who put product managers into line management positions. So the product manager, for example, in one company, development reported into the product manager. That can work, but it adds to the workload of the product manager, right? I mean, you need to manage the whole development team when you are in that situation, in addition to your product management tasks. So the question is, how much can one person do, right? Limits to our scalability. I mean, of course, when you are in that situation, you have all these responsibilities and no people reporting to you, so you can only try to convince people in the other units. Sometimes that can be frustrating, and sometimes we wish we were in a hierarchical management position and could tell people what to do. But that has its pros and cons, right? So I would say that at least 95% of all product managers in software are not in a hierarchical position.
Okay. Do you think PMs should play a role of being the culture changers, or adding their impact to the culture as well?
Of course, yes. See, I think that the fact that product managers interact with people in all these other functional areas of the company position them very well when it comes to change management processes. And cultural change is part of that. So, see, I've done quite a lot of consulting work, for example, for professional service companies who wanted to add a software product business to their professional service business. And that's one of these situations where cultural change is the major hurdle. So professional service people think differently from product people. And so if you want to establish a product organization in that environment, you really need to go through some cultural change. And that is a situation where product managers need to be drivers of that cultural change. Of course, in cooperation with the executive management. They cannot do it alone, but the executive management can usually also not do it alone, right? So it needs this cooperation.
Thanks for answering my questions.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Okay. So we talked about the requirements, few words on ISPMA. As I said before, we started ISPMA in 2009 was a group of experts from industry and academia. And from the very beginning, our vision was that we want to foster SPM excellence across industries by establishing software product management as a discipline of its own in both academia and on the industry side. And you may be aware that there is a problem in academia. There's very little dedicated education at universities for software product management. The computer science departments don't want to touch it because it's too much business, it's not technical enough. And the economic departments don't want to touch it because it's too technical. So it doesn't really fit into the academic structures. And that's unfortunate. And that's the case all over the world, even in the US, it's the same situation. So we are very happy that by now there are some first universities who offer product management education, and in a few cases, even master degrees on software product management. So that has improved a little bit, but well, we talked about change management. Change management in academic institutions may be the most difficult of all, you know. The way we do this is by creating and maintaining a body of knowledge that is documented in our syllabi. And the syllabi are the basis for training and for certification. So and these syllabi are frequently updated so that they continue to stay up to date with regard to best practices. What you see here, these are our so-called fellow members. These fellows are a pretty diverse group of people from all over the world. Some fairly prominent people down here. This guy here, this is Michael Cusumano. He's a professor at MIT in Cambridge, Massachusetts in the US. And he's considered as the founder of academic research on software business. He has published tons of books on the subject. We are very happy to have him among our fellows. So some really interesting academic people, but also interesting people from the industry side. So this guy here, this is Franco Gatti from ABB in Italy. This guy here is Karl Popp from SAP in Germany. So it's a really nice mix of people, both from industry backgrounds and from academic backgrounds. And that is unique. There is no other educational organization in the area of product management that has this kind of setup and so much knowledgeable people behind the curriculum. This is our current curriculum. So we have this base module, which is called the foundation. So that's the starting point for most product managers who work in more established organizations. What we have just launched is this module SPM for startups. So for people in startups or in new product development organizations in mature companies who work in a kind of startup mode. That's the target audience for this module. And then we have our excellence modules here that go a bit deeper into the different parts. You remember these parts from the framework. So for these 4 elements, we have excellence modules, and they provide more in-depth information compared to the foundation, and also more room for case studies and exercises. And each of these 6 modules comes with its own certification based on multiple choice tests. ISPMA also organizes conferences under the name SPM Summit. Mohammed and Amre joined us for the last conference in Frankfurt in March. We really appreciated that they came. And these conferences are really a get-together of experts and people both from the industry and also from academia, to exchange views and ideas, and lots of practitioners. So we always enjoy these get-togethers. These are the dates for next year. The Frankfurt conference will be a hybrid event, so you can also participate online. And we'll have a conference again in Bangalore, in India, in cooperation with the Indian Institute of Management, which is the #1 business school in India. We also work on a first conference in the US in cooperation with New York University. But that's not yet final, but we hope that we can have that conference also in early 2023. So, Mohammed, you may be able to say more. I hope it was useful for you to participate in Frankfurt.
Okay, thank you so much, Hans, for your time, your insightful and valuable knowledge and insights about a very needed domain that's not much here in, I think, in the MENA, not only in Egypt. I would love to thank Nesma also for supporting us and for sharing the event. Thank you so much, Nesma. And thanks for all the participants and all the attendees. We really enjoyed your presence with us. Hans, can you go to the next slide, please?
Sure.
So, yeah, I think here, as Hans mentioned in the beginning of the meetup, and also as I mentioned in the intro, that we will have a series of meetups. We started with a meetup, and we'll have 2 other meetups at least. And we'll consider your input in the registration form, the topics and your needs. And also here are some suggestions regarding the 2 upcoming meetups. One, to tackle the new approaches in product planning, like to cover the requirements-driven and data input-driven approach. And the third one will be a panel discussion I'm so optimistic with about the platforms. Will they conquer the world, or what will happen in the near future with that? If you have any questions, feel free to ask right now, because like we are finalizing the meetup. If you do not, we will move forward with the last 2 slides.
So if you want to get in touch, feel free to connect on LinkedIn. If you have questions, send an email. You'll find more information on my website and also on ISPMA's website. Stay in touch.
I have a question, please, Hans.
Sure.
What's the popularity of the ISPM certificate? And I'm not, I think it's not here in the MENA, but the MENA region, but I think it's well spread in Europe, or
yeah, I mean, the highest number of participants have been in Europe. Also, in the meantime, in India, quite a number. We are going into the North American market. We have just started the North American chapter of ISPMA. So we want to establish ISPMA and our certificates in North America as well. But at the moment, we are not there yet.
Mhm. Okay. Thank you, Hans.
You're welcome.
Uh,
Okay, with that, I thank you very much. Also, thank you to Mohammed for organizing everything. Like I said, if you have additional questions, feel free to ask either here or via email.
we have one last question from, he asked about the certification and if there is, if there are any required courses to attend. I think you can reply to him.
Well, what we recommend is that you attend training before you do the certification exam. And Mohammed and myself, in our cooperation, we plan to offer a foundation training for Egypt and the MENA region. So there will be an offer, but that is not cast in stone. So anybody can sign up for a certification exam at your own risk. The statistics show that the success rate of people who did not attend a training before is much lower than when you attend the training.
And I think I can reply to Omar with the last question. He asked about the training. Will they be offline or online, and when will this happen? Omar, actually, we are like checking all the suggestion. Is it going to be offline only? Is it going to be so like just keep following our presence on online, like our Facebook page and our LinkedIn and our email, and definitely we'll announce about the details of the certification and how you are going to obtain it.
See, I told Mohammed early on that I want to travel to Egypt and do it there.
Yeah.
I have not fully convinced him yet.
We're happy to have you here in Egypt. Okay, so I think the last two slides, can we go to the next slide?
Sure.
Yeah, as I mentioned, thanks for everyone who attended and who kept till this last moments. We almost finished on time, which is something I'm so happy with. Going to receive a feedback form. It's so simple. I promise you to not take more than just 2 minutes from your valuable time. Just 2 questions: what you liked and what you didn't like, and would love us to improve. Please reply, fill the form, and give us your insights to help us to improve the experience of the online meetups and the certification later on, and our next endeavors. And next slide, please, Hans. And I would love to emphasize that we are hiring at Techie Matter, associate product manager. So please, if you know anyone, or like if you yourself would love to apply, please send your resume to this email. And I will definitely upload I'll make sure the recorded version of this meetup will be uploaded on YouTube. We'll send it to you via email. And that's it. The last slide is thank you for your time, and see you at the next Tafra meetup. Thank you.
All right. Thank you for spending your evening with me.
It was a nice evening, by the way, Hans. Thanks for sharing all of that with us.
Thank you. And I hope to see you again soon.
Yeah, I hope to. In Egypt, that. Okay.
Absolutely.
Inshallah.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Bye-bye.